Good morning, recruiting junkies. How are you? I hope you're all well. You'll notice for a Monday, I'm not alone. I have Steve Moran, owner and founder of Greenfield IT, on the show today. Hello, Steve.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good. You're in sunny Shropshire.
I am indeed. Not so sunny this morning, but yeah, welcome to Shropshire.
Shropshire is one of those places that if you like work at the Birmingham market and someone says, "Oh, we'd like someone in Shropshire," you just put a bullet in your head. And you do IT out of Shropshire.
We do. There's not a hotbed of IT recruitment. So I think about 10% of our revenues come from the local area. The majority of it is Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool.
Ah, nice, fantastic. So let me give everyone a bit of a background in terms of why you're here. So Steve is a client of the recruiting gym, but also he's turning into one of those clients that's sort of becoming a friend, especially in today's world where we pick up the phone, we chat, we share the odd commiseration, and we fight. We're fighting a good fight together. And the reason I invited Steve on the show today was that we were chatting on Friday, and he was telling us he had some success. And so we thought we'd talk to Steve about some of the success he's having and how he came by that success, because often it's not the placement that counts, it's the journey towards it where the magic is, that hopefully Steve can share with us. So Steve, share with us some of the successes you've had over the last week or so.
Okay. So I guess being back on the tools is the first thing that sort of happened on the journey. So with a team of 12 people, I spent quite a lot of time doing the business development strategic piece, not actually doing the deals and doing the whole 360 role. So it was quite a shock when obviously the lockdown happened and all the roles that we had were going on hold left, right, and center, and it was like all hands to the pump, and I had to get back on the phone. We were speaking to one client in the Northwest. I'm not going to say too much about it, but yeah, we're speaking to one client in the Northwest who historically had wanted some really, really tough skill sets. They wanted permanent staff only. They wanted them on site all the time. And we had these roles kicking around for a fair amount of time. We've offered him contract options a number of times over the last probably 2 to 3 months, and he's not been getting very far with his permanent recruitments. And he turned around on, I think 2 weeks ago, I'd been watching one of your stand-ups, and it was like, the message was, go and offer your clients your whole portfolio again, and don't let them assume that you're a permanent recruiter when you can do contract, and vice versa. And this contract opportunity came around from speaking to this client who only thought we did permanent, which was a shot in the head. Yeah.
You've been saying, do you want a contract? They still thought you only did permanent.
Correct. And we've got email histories offering them contract CVs, and it's like, no, too expensive. They're only hanging around for a bit. They're all mercenaries. And bear in mind the IT world, but what you said on Thursday to Russell, is that these contract guys are at the pinnacle of their career. They're £500-600 a day, these guys, and he's looking normally to pay about 40 to 50 grand a year.
Right.
So first thing he said was, sorry, I didn't realize you did contract, which was like a shot in the heart. Yeah. And I was going to ring the account manager of that client and say, what the blooming heck have you been doing? But then I cross-referenced it on Bullhorn, and all our CRM and emails linked, and there's obvious history of us saying we do contract, what about a contractor? But the moral of the story is that this guy had always said no to contract, and he'd always historically said no to remote workers, because we'd offered him options of permies that could maybe do 2 or 3 days a week in the office, and he'd said, no, I need them here full time. But with the new world that we won't labor too much, he's had to deal with workers working remotely, and he's actually worked out that yes, it works. So 2 weeks ago, we got some remote contract roles on from a client that hated contractors and would never have anyone remotely. So we pushed them through the remote interview process, 2 Skype interviews, followed by a Teams presentation.
Okay.
Which is, a lot for a contract deal. Normally it's a quick phone call, bosh, in it goes. But the client needed some safety net and some due diligence, shall we say, across these contractors. They made 2 offers on Thursday, and both of them are starting this Wednesday. So
this is fantastic.
Yeah.
there's so much to unpick in that in Steve. So first one is that like often we think, I think often when we offer different solutions to clients, we do what's called cross-asking. So we go, do you want a contractor with that? And we ask the question rather than actually find the need and present a solution. And so and the second one is that it's not being pushy to keep offering the solutions that that you can offer the client, because people's needs change.
Yeah, I'd agree. Another example is I was on a Teams call with another client down in Staffordshire. They were looking for some software development skills. Anyone who recruits software guys will know these guys are like hen's teeth at the moment. There's still very few of them around in the permanent world because there's that much demand for them. We were talking through the job spec. We had a screen share going on with my laptop, and I said, "Would you consider contractors?" No, they're too expensive, and we don't want the IP to walk out the door the intellectual property to walk out the door when they leave. And I said, well, let me just show you this. And I'd already prepped for this. And I had one of my best contractors who's worked for me for about 10 years, who is the dog's danglies in this space. So he's got all the tech skills, really senior guy. He was available because he'd just unfortunately been let go by another client who'd knee-jerked because of IR35. And I flashed it in front of them on the screen, and they were both going, ooh, he looks good. And I went,
you didn't stick a candidate in. No.
Yeah. So the CTO was going, that looks really good, Steve. So he's available immediately. And even the MD was going, well, we'll have to look at the finances, but we got the conversation going about contracts. So that was
what's really good about that, Steve, is that and that's one of the upsides of virtual meetings, is that, and it's no different than when you go on a physical client meeting, you take some CVs to sort of prove to them. Because I think one of the challenges is, I think a lot of clients, no recruiter ever says we don't have anyone. Everyone says we've got someone for that. And actually, when you show them a real CV and say, let me talk to you about their background, and again, that's one of the differences, isn't it? You know this contractor, and you can talk around the CV rather than just say, are you interested?
Yeah.
And so what other objections did you encounter? Because obviously you dropped a little bit of bait in the water. The CTO had gone, woohoo! What happened then? What other obstacles did you have to overcome?
Well, we're still working on it with that client. That was a different opportunity to the one where we've got the people starting. So with that client, there's still some work to be done around. They still have this vision in their head that they're going to be able to find Amazon Web Services skills in the middle of Staffordshire, where there's nobody else using that skill set, for about 15 miles, and just about another 5 miles up the road, you've got 2 or 3 people.
That out now?
Say again?
Have they worked that out now?
They're starting to, yeah. I mean, I guess that the lack of permanent CVs, I mean, they're talking to us and a couple of other suppliers, and I don't think they've had one CV. The only CV that I've been able to put forward is a desperate contract guy who's trying to pay his mortgage and said, all right, go on, I'll look at a perm job.
Yeah. No.
There's a bunch of pitfalls there. But yeah, I think we'll get round to convincing them that, and we'll use some of the tactics that Russell was talking about on Thursday.
Yeah. And before we move on, Steve, can you show me your recruitment muscle? Look at that. Show the team. You still got the guns. You've still got the recruitment moves. That's the thing you're most excited about, isn't it? To be able to, another deal, another interview, another perm job converted to contract. You're like,
yeah, my family are getting used to the deal dance. So yeah.
The best job in recruitment is working vacancies. That is without a doubt the best job in recruitment. So, so the next thing we're going to talk about, Steve, is we're going to talk about planning. Now, for almost every recruiter, when you mention planning, everyone's like, and over the last few weeks, I can say I've been guilty of almost not wanting to plan because I don't really know what to plan. How do you feel about planning when you do it?
I think you get a different answer now, Alex, than you would have done a month ago, because anybody trying to do strategic longer term planning right now, I don't know, it's finger in the air stuff, really is. So I think my planning really is down to the week to week, day to day, in terms of making sure that you're getting the key things achieved over the course of the day. And that might be a to-do list, or it could be a strategic things you need to do during the week. And we're trying to break it down into 3 pots. So the first one is the live stuff you've got going on now. What possibly can make us some money? And those are few and far between, if I'm being honest, even within our business. We've got to deal with the clients that we've got that are looking to recruit, and we prioritize that activity ahead of anything else.
Okay.
Second pot is the pipeline, where you've got clients that historically have, we when lockdown was announced, we had 43 interviews cancelled.
Right.
And we went from 148 live vacancies to 6 in a week. And 3 of those were in the Middle East, so we can't fly anyone out there. So we're going around the clients that put everything on hold, and everyone talked about. In fact, I remember someone on your show talked about it being a V-shaped black swan recession. I think it's going to be a little bit longer of a climb out, possibly. And the clients that did put recruitment on hold and cancel the interviews, 1 or 2 of them have now started to realise. I think the word business critical, someone mentioned that on one of your shows last week again, that actually there is a way of doing things. So we're trying to get around those customers and demonstrate that there is a way to do it, talking to them about the successes that we've got with online and blah, blah, blah.
I think Steve, if we could pause for a second on that, I think what's really important is that I think for the first 3 or 4 weeks, everyone was just holding their breath, and just sort of surviving, where now everyone's like, okay, we're in this for the next 2 to 3 months. We need to get work done. And also every business that's planning for the future generally has to execute some sort of change internally. And for that, you need the key people doing the key role. So, I mean, I think that's a tremendously powerful. So silo 1 is looking after your business as usual. And then silo 2, what you're saying, is the double backing on leads and people that were recruiting and clients, just to check they're okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a lot of talk, and especially, there's nothing wrong with this, but there's been a lot of talk of activities that don't necessarily generate revenue immediately. And as a business owner, that's all I'm focused on right now, is trying to keep the lights on so that when the bounce happens, that we're ready to connect with it. Because if we sort of just, as Greg Savage mentioned, go into a cave and think it's going to be all right, and we're not working the relationships, then somebody else is going to grab those clients before we do as they come out the back end of them. So from a planning perspective, absolutely. So live stuff that can make us cash. Second pot is looking at the companies that did put things on hold and just keeping in touch with those guys and not making any assumptions, because that's the key thing. It doubles back again into making sure that they know that we can offer contract solutions if they're perm clients, or if they're contract clients historically, that we can support them with some of their perm stuff. The other thing we've done in that space as well, Alex, quite interestingly, we've tried to diversify and just said, look, we are IT and digital, but is there anything else we can help you with?
Right.
So in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've got customer service roles on. We've got a sales manager's job on for a company in Essex. I mean,
okay.
Have you done
business with them in the past, though?
Say again.
Have you done business with them in the past?
Yeah, we've placed 2 or 3 of their permanent IT staff. Yeah.
Cool. So I guess it's sort of an existing client. You know them, they know you. Are they exclusive roles, the ones outside of IT?
Yeah.
Great. And I think the dipping quite far out of your niche is a good thing, as long as you've got the commitment from the client and you feel like there's likely to turn to cash. I think one of the challenges is if you just start going multi-agency vacancies with clients that you haven't worked all over the place, that might not work.
No, I think it also has got to tie in with the access to the candidate pools that we've got. So there's no point in us going to try and find, biochemists or pharma people. We'll be starting from scratch. The fact is that we're paying an inordinate amount of money to some of the mainstream job boards. I won't spit, but yeah.
They haven't much compassion, from what I understand.
Yeah, some of which have been, good, others maybe not so. But we've got access to these candidate pools, and a couple, the Boolean search string's a Boolean search string as long as you know what words to put in it. And we found that, as long as the client will give us the time to understand the requirement, that's the key thing. Yeah. If they're lottery jobs, as in you've got to be in it to win it, and you're throwing a bunch of CVs hoping one will stick, we've got to understand what good looks like. And if we've got it exclusive and we know what good looks like, then we can go and do a job on it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing. I think Alan, one of the coaches in the gym, is here, and he says that we're talking about planning and how we're struggling to plan for the future. He said maybe we should be talking to the clients about what their plans are for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, and sort of like, we're struggling to know what the rest of the year looks like. What are your plans for the rest of the year? What's your strategy? Because people will have a number of different strategies.
Yeah.
But I think continuing to talk to clients about what is your plan, find the clients that feel like there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
And some clients are doing really well, like, you know, and they're feeling positive. They've got funding in place. They've got client bases in place. But you've got to hunt them. You've got to hunt them out.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. I'd agree. I think that just the last thing I'd say on that point, Alex, is that empathy thing that people have been talking about over the last 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to have to play that card heavy, because a lot of our customers, their planning is going out the window as well. They don't know what's going to happen, you know, unless they're in a sector where they're, I don't know, making face masks or gown, whatever, you know. I don't want to delve too much into that. There's plenty said on that front, but, you know, there's a lot of our client base who just don't know quite what the future holds, and they're concerned about their own jobs.
And that's where I think Greg spoke about the narrative, you know, and I think leaders need to work with their teams to say, right, here's the narrative, is that we're not quite sure what our plans are, you know, but what are your plans? And if they don't know, say, well, we feel your pain. Like, it's sort of like the blind leading the blind. We're all in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
And we hope we're sort of finding our way. So how far forward are you planning, Steve? Angela's just asked a question.
Yeah, I just saw that. Yeah. I mean, there's a difference between sort of immediate business and sales pipeline planning and obviously running the business and cash flow planning. The cash flow runs forward for 6 months.
Yeah.
And we've plugged everything into that. As I say, there's various different, if there's anyone running businesses on the call, they'll know about stockpiling cash and pushing some of the bills down the line, and holidays, from all sorts of things that you can take holidays from a business and sales pipeline planning perspective. We're looking at probably 2 to 3 weeks in advance, based on the interviews that we've got coming through and the clients that we say that we can hire.
And is there any tools that you're using to help you plan? I've gone old school.
Business? Do you mean running the business, or do you mean sales?
Both really. Just so you find you're using Teams more, or are you finding you're using spreadsheets? What are you doing to sort of organize everything?
Our cash flow has always been run with a spreadsheet with lots of formulas in, and, you know, costs at the top and income at the bottom, and then a running bank balance at the bottom. So, you know, really, if you are going to have a problem, we know 3-4 months in advance. Which you know, we were. It's a real strange one, Alex, because, you know, you think you do planning, and we did have over reliance on one client until probably around about 12 months ago, and we said, right, what would happen if that client stopped spending? And we did the sort of tin hat strategy and said, right, let's pretend that client stopped spending any money. So we diversified. We made sure we weren't in any one particular sector. We weren't reliant on any one particular client. But nobody plans for a pandemic, and it was like.
Yeah. But to be fair, Steve, if you hadn't done that, you'd be even worse situation now. Like, at least you have more relationships, you have other markets you believe you can go in. And I know I've spoken to some clients that were heavily dependent. There's plenty of recruiters now that where their boss has been telling them you should be doing BD, that now wish they had been doing BD rather than milking that account. So, Steve, we try and keep these short and sharp. We are at the end of today's stand-up. You've been a fantastic guest. Thank you very much. All the best to everyone at Greenfield IT. You're now recruitment famous as part of the recruiting gym. And I, as a client, as a friend, thank you very much for all your support over the last few weeks. So have a good day, and all the best.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Steve.
Cheers.